Greetings, immortal. Been a while since I made a video, so I figure it's about time. I'd like to talk to you about lucid dreaming, something that I was involved with for quite a while, and then kind of fell out of it, and you'll understand why when I finish the story. So, there's a bit of, I think, confusion around it. There's many different levels to this practice, right? And when I hear somebody say, "Oh, I lucid dream all the time," it's like, okay. I knew this kid that would say, "I spend most of my time lucid dreaming." And I'd be like, "So you spend most of your time sleeping, you lazy fuck," right? But no, it's actually, uh, it's a magic trick. It's a little bit difficult to do. You can practice it in different ways. One of the best ways is to start to keep a dream journal. This will show your body that you want to remember, and it will start to do that. There's also triggers. The easiest one is look at your hands. Your hands are always with you. And so if you have presence of mind within the dream enough to look at your hands, you pretty much just went lucid. And so a lot of people, they confuse it with vivid dreaming. And just becoming aware that you're dreaming is just the first level, the lowest level. And yes, you become aware you're dreaming lucid. Yes, that's the word. But there's other levels to it, like being able to completely control and be the architect of the dream after that. And I hear people saying, "Oh, I'm a lucid dreamer. I know I'm dreaming, but then all of a sudden, the scary thing happened and all this stuff." Anything that's not in your control, you're definitely, not at the level that I think of it is. So becoming aware you're dreaming is one thing, and that's the first step. For me, it was I was just having this dream. I was on this little boat, and the wave knocked me over the edge of it. I was falling towards the water, and my thought was, I don't want to hit that water. And as soon as I thought that, the speed of thought, I was about 10, 20,000 feet above the spot I was, just nanosecond before. And sometimes I'm afraid of heights, but this time I wasn't. It was like being, flying over a town in a jet or something, right? I could see the tiny little ship down there and couldn't even see the little boat that I was on. That's how high up I was. And I was like, whoa, okay. I want to be back down. And as soon as I thought that, boom, right back down on the deck of that boat. And I thought, okay, that's cool. Let's do it again. And so up and down again. And so not only aware I was dreaming, but controlling, just with the mere thought. And so it wasn't something that I tried at all. It just happened organically. So I immediately knew, oh, wow, so this must be what lucid dreaming's about, right? I mean, there's no mistake. Some people say, oh, I think I lucid dream. No, you know immediately. There's no question in your mind. And so this is an easy way to overcome nightmares or night terrors, is to look at your hands and then go, I'm just dreaming. Sometimes your hands will look normal. And if that's the case, you look away and you look back. And then they'll have changed. Usually at first glance, you'll see there's a difference. And you'll know right away, okay, I'm in the dreamscape. I'm on the astral plane. And so you can take control of the situation. Once you start to do that, become aware you're dreaming, then the nightmare disappears on its own. So back to my story, after I'd been up and down twice, when I got down the second time, I was a little bit different thing. It was almost like a ferry with a card deck and stuff. And my immediate thought was, show me the clue. Because I knew this had happened for a reason. And I knew I was about ready to wake. And I saw a force of armed men that were like invading this lower deck of this boat, but looks like they were heading towards shore. And they were armed to the teeth, all in black. And one of them spun his head around, looked right towards me, but looked right through me, did not see me. And I could see through the little ninja slit that showed his eyes that he was Asian, he was Chinese. And he looked back immediately and kept following the rest of the armed men. And I woke up right after that and I thought, what the fuck, right? And I deduced that it was just, my subconscious telling me the Chinese are taking over everything, which they are. So, having everything built over there, they stole all the intellectual property. They, own everything. You get it. And so after that, I began to keep a dream journal and try to practice this talent. And it doesn't happen all the time. But if you, say a little mantra at night, like I am, I become, or no, you don't say I become, say I control the dream and I remember my dreams, stuff like that. You will start to get it. And like I said, looking at your hands is my trigger. You can use whatever, but that's one of the best ones. There was a time when I was treading water right. This is when I realized my spirit animal had changed from bear. It used to be bear. I had a dream about a little bear cub leading me by the hand ages ago. And so my cousin, the shaman, said, yeah, the bear is your spirit guide. But it switched a few years back. I was treading water with the otters, right? A little ice hole we were breathing out of. And the otter being well, in the Native American belief, it's the most powerful spirit guide because also a changeling. And so there has all the characteristics of all the other guides. So kind of like the master guide. And I was treading water with it, right? And I realized, oh, there's my hands. And I looked up, I go, oh, I'm dreaming. And so immediately willed myself to be out of the water and on the shore. And I started looking for the clue. And so, now what Carlos Castaneda wrote, Don Juan told him, is that you search for the mystery school. And this is a place where you can learn the secrets of the universe. But I started out chasing down this book called the Book of Transportation. It was this huge ancient looking tome that would just, I'd see it. It was always within my grasp, but I would wake before I'd get it. And I believe this was the first step. So I set about on that quest. And first thing you want to do when you become lucid is learn to fly. You can fly in your dreams, but it's a different thing when you begin to control it and control the entire dream, right? So using the horns of your hands and the horns of your feet, kind of imagine like the Iron Man suit, right? You got your hand chakras and your feet chakras, and those will, they're your propel, they'll propel you, your propulsion. And you learn to control it. I mean, I started right away clumsy, right? I was literally sitting on my hands with my palms down and floating off the ground to start with, but it doesn't take long, and pretty soon you get it. You start to be able to fly effortlessly just by using little flicks of your palms, right? Back forth, sail along. And so Don Juan said, you want to set up a dreaming, and by doing that within the dream, you will travel to a place you know. And for me, it was, I started out, well, when I first started flying, I could see my home state of Alaska, dreaming. I grew up in a fish boat, so I was dream on being on the ocean on a boat all the time. And so I was above it, and I could see, southeast Alaska, Juneau, whatever. So I decided to find Seattle, and sure enough, it was fairly easy. And that was my first destination. And after that, I began to search for the mystery school, which is, that's an incredible feat on its own to locate it. And, your higher self will bring you there. And when I did locate it, you wake up, right? It's always a one step thing. And so I was listening to a video where this lady's talking about how she's lucid dreaming, and then these people were telling her, well, we have to, you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't have this power, right? We're going to inject you and you won't be able to lucid dream anymore. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, okay. That sounds just like a regular dream, right? I mean, if you truly are in control of the dream, nobody's telling you what to do, right? You are actually in command. And so, one of the other things you might spot, and some people warn you about this, but, take this or leave it, but you'll see that most of the time when you see other people in your dream, sure, you can talk to them, blah, blah, blah. But it's a different thing altogether when you looking around and you see someone that's looking right at you. And first time I saw the guy, he was grinning ear to ear, right? And he looked really familiar. Looked like it could have been an ancestor of mine, right? And he was just grinning ear, like, yes, you did it, right? So it wasn't anything negative in any way, shape, or form. And I woke up immediately after, right? That's the thing about it too. You'll get excited and you'll wake up. And so grinding yourself into the dream, it becomes the next thing, right? And some people say you spin around in a circle, blah, blah, blah. For me, it was just take a breath, right? And so I would just calm and center, and I would be able to stay in it longer. You can do whatever you feel works for you. So um, the other thing was like, it would just, my location, my situation, the dreamscape, the astral plane would change with my thoughts, right? And so that's how you know immediately that you are being the architect of the dream, right? And so, of course, it's not going to be, that easy to happen all the time. Matter of fact, it will test you, and I was tested for sure. Um, so, as I was chasing the book of transportation, right, it led me to the mystery school too, and I found that place, and it was wow. It was, the building was bigger than a mountain, right? It was ancient, looked like it'd been around for thousands of years. The carvings on the door, the gigantic Lord of the Rings type door, could have looked at them for the rest of your life and not seen it all. And even just the very handle I was reaching out to was just ornately carved. It was amazing. Uh, you could easily get caught up just staring at it. But when I found it, first time I spotted it, of course, wake up, then you make it to the door, wake up, hand on door, wake up, right? All that. And so it's a process. And so I used to have this recurring nightmare. The first one that I had was there was a darkness that was after me, right? Yeah, dark versus light. At first, it was just a voice. It was a presence, right? Very creepy, creeped me out. And then the next time I saw, I could see the eyes. And the third and final time I saw, it was in the form of a man, but it was uh, it was just in the shape of the man, and it was like a negative space, right? Um, and it was, by then I was running from it, right? And it was chasing me and right towards this cliff. And I was like, at that point, I was like, fuck this guy. And I just literally just, nah, I just dove off the cliff, right? I'm like, nah, he ain't gonna get me. I'm off, right? And as I dove off the cliff, I spun around to look back at this thing, and it had transformed into what, I could only describe as like a giant snake or a worm, right? And that it had was diving straight down and right into the ground like it was water. And I was like, what, And so as I'm plummeting down, it went through the ground and came out the cliff face right under me and came up to swallow me whole, right? As I was diving down, and I, in the full twirl, I come around and I saw it, and I was just like, and and I had this instinctual thought. It was like, no way, right? No, and I just literally exploded into white light and literally obliterated the darkness as it tried to swallow me, right? But even the smallest particle of light can defeat the dark. And so when pretty much set off like a thermonuclear bomb, right? It was defeated, and I woke up and I was like, yeah, that's right, right. And so that was the end of that character. But it returned in the form of a 2 mile high wave. Now, growing up on a fishing boat, this is going to be, that was the worst nightmare a guy could have, right? And I literally had these while I was on the boat. We'd be out in the ocean, drifting at night because, you're out there so far, you don't run into anchor up. You just turn the boat off, cut it loose, let it drift, right? And you sleep. And when you're in motion like that, you definitely have vivid dreams. And so I would have this one of, I'd be on the deck, right? Fish, pulling gear or whatever. And I turn to look, and here's this, literally a 2 mile high wave just bearing down on us. And your immediate thought is, right? You just, oh, right. That's it. It's over, right? There's no escaping that. Especially you're on a boat, right? It's done. It's game over, right? You are definitely done. And so it'd be like, I'd be like, right? And I'd wake up and I'd be like, fuck this. Go out, look around. No way, right? And so that thing had me in fear, right? And so I hated that thing. It was my rival. And finally, there was a time when I was having a dream and I was on the beach in Hawaii because I travel there often, and just chilling there at sunset. And I turned to look at the sunset, right? And boom, everybody's looking at, here it is. There's the wave. I'm like, oh, you fuck, right? And it's on the beach this time, which was different. I mean, it was right there. And I just had time enough to turn my back to it, right? But at that moment, I was just like, you know what? And I just kind of spread my arms out and said, do your worst kind of thing. Like, go ahead, take me, right? That kind of thing. Whatever, right? And it literally passed through me harmlessly, right? And I was like, oh, you're a fraud, right? It's an illusion. And so after that, I was no longer afraid of it. I saw what it really was. And that nightmare ended. Well, so I thought. So I hadn't had it for, probably a decade or better. And I was on my quest to find the mystery school, right? And when I had found it, right, my next lucid dream, I was right there, right? And sure enough, I when I was dreaming, same trigger, hands, right? And then I was like, okay, since I had already traveled to where the door was, I just immediately there, right? By thought. And I was looking at the door again, and I could see a movement of a shadow on it or something of the like, right? And I spun around, and there was the fucking wave, right? But this time was different. It was not moving. It was in the distance, like it might have been even miles away, but it was gigantic, of course, and it looked like, if you're looking in a canyon at a mesa in the distance, right? This wall of water is moving, but not towards me. And I was just like, you, and not you, that kind of thought went through my head. Oh, you fuck, right? And as soon as I think that, the thing just started to race towards me at, I don't know, speed of sound or what the fuck ever. But it was coming fast. And I just thought, no, right? No. And as soon as I thought that, it began to slow. And so I was like, no, right? And I put my hands up, and it was like, it like hit a wall, but was still coming. And it was right about on me by then. And so I was just like, no, right? And then the true battle began. And as it inched towards me, I was in the curl of it, right? And it's like sounded like I was in a fucking jet engine, right? It was just so loud. And I was just continuing to push against it. And it was pushing forward towards me too, right? The entire astral plane. And my fingers started to disappear within the water, right? Which was just a churning miasma right in front of me. And it was just like I said, being in the middle of a tornado, so to speak. And so focusing my entire being on holding it back, I began to wake up. And normally when I wake up, it's instantaneous, a snap awake, right? Waking up on the fishing boat, it's like this immediately, right? You're awake. And so this was entirely different. As a matter of fact, I had never woken up like that before ever in my life. It was slow, tedious process. And my eyes began to open, and I could see my room slowly, a little crack opening of my room. I could see reality and the astral plane at the same time. Right, that had never happened. And so I was either pulling the astral plane into reality or vice versa. Either way, pretty much some magician level shit. And it was, like I said, a very slow process. I could just barely see the beginnings of the room and stuff like that. And finally, it was like the wave just collapsed. It just finally, like, it gave up the ghost, like, okay, boom, that's it, you win, right? And as it collapsed, I came awake, right? And so, yeah, I was like, oh, yes, I did it, right? It was an enormous accomplishment. And so I immediately wrote it down in my dream journal, right? And I got my journal over here. I could probably read it. Let's do it. Blah, blah, blah. Skip down. Here's how I got it. We are now in a skiff in rough waters leading up to a huge vortex. The wave is stuck next to a cylinder like a mesa, and I realize I'm dreaming. There it is, right? Okay. And I did make the wave a trigger, right? As soon as I see the wave, I know I was dreaming, right? So I whip my hands up and look at as I say, I look at my hands, and immediately I see they're different. And so then I use them to hold the wave back. The sound is so intense, it's like being in a washer doing spin cycle. Yeah, it was more like a jet engine. So I did close my eyes, and when I reopen them, I can't see anything but the darkness, and my hands are covered with it, so I can't see them, but the sound is all around me. And this is when I'm like in the curl of the wave, right? I slowly begin to wake and open my physical eyes to see my room, but the sound is still with me. It's like I'm still dreaming in the real world, or I pulled the real world into my dream, or vice versa. Very intense and overwhelming it was. The realization that I actually used my own personal power through my hands and my will to literally change the dream, the astral plane, took a while to sink in. This is after the wave collapsed. An enormous breakthrough for me. I'm sure it's no coincidence that at that time I had stopped chronically smoking weed and stuff like that, right? And so the lead up to it was like you don't listen every time. And there were some other ones that were a lead up to it, right, with the whole wave thing, right? And the waves after I knew the wave was a fraud, right? It started to be like just part of my regular dreamscape. And some of these are pretty funny. I was reading them earlier, and it's funny. We were just fish right around in them, right? The waves are just part of life. So okay, here's one. Here it is. Here's a good page of it, right? And so, on the ocean, one encounter two waves approaching us from opposite directions. So I say we're done, but the waves pass right through us. So we go back to the beach. Okay? And then dream two, in an old Cannery Town setting, I'm alone until I spot an old bearded guy with no facial features standing in the distance, right? And he's looking at me, right? And he slowly raises his hands, kind of like to do a Tai Chi type motion, but I started to mimic him and mimic his movements completely. And then I can see that he's floating upwards, right? And I realize that I am floating upwards as well, right? It feels as though I'm leaning on a bar that is lifting me, right? But it's the power of the horns, the hands, right? And being controlled by me on how I lean on it, right? And then the instructor disappeared as soon as I had taken flight. Then I look at my hands and I go, fully lucid, right? And I begin to really get the control of the flight, flying through the landscape, right? Okay, yeah. So, well, you get the picture of it. My dream journal goes on for years, right? But the latest one I'm having, right after defeating the wave, I started not being able to really lucid dream for a while. Everything just went to these really. Here's one in a classroom teaching lucid dream techniques. That's funny. I started to have these really monotonous dreams that are difficult to go lucid in, right? What happened was making my way back to the mystery school, right? And it was kind of unnerving. It's the most unnerving thing that's ever happened. But I figured it out since then. What would happen is it's the moment I would become aware that I was dreaming, it would be like, how dreams are like more vivid than reality. The Technicolor scene it was just like I'd hear this enormous crack, right? And everything would just turn white and crack and shatter apart into dust. This off-white, cancerous-looking dust that would drop to the ground and then literally disappear, and I'm in a void where there's nothing, literally nothing. I could sense nothing. I'm literally, reality just was canceled, right? Yeah. The most unnerving thing that I've ever witnessed, ever felt, ever, wow, right? Reality just stopped. And when I woke up, I was like, what in the fuck? I mean, it'd been a long time since a dream had scared me, right? But that one was entirely unnerving. And it's happened 3 times thus far. And so I try not to go lucid anymore, right? Because it's just, what's the point? The second time it happened, I mean, the first time it happened, I was freaked. And I was like, okay, I'm good, whatever, right? Second time it happened, it reminded me of how bad it freaked me out. And the third time it happened, I was just like, all right, we're good. I'll chill. And so I stopped trying to practice the lucid dream thing, because what I deduced was that the astral plane was like, okay, break time, right? You know, you're kicked off for a while, right? Take a breather, right? And that's the only thing I can figure on it, right? Because the shit happens the moment, just instantaneous speed of thought, boom, crack, crumble, boom, done, right? And I'm floating in this void, just can't even breathe, right? So now I'm starting to dream again, just you know, stupid repetitive dreams and whatnot. And I don't even try to go lucid in them, right? But I feel like might be about time to start again. So that is my story for the different levels of what we all just call lucid dreaming, which encompasses many levels. Right? Just becoming aware that you're dreaming is definitely, not. It's the lowest level. It's just your first step, and there's many more to go. So, and I've heard people talk like, "Oh, well, I control my dream all the time. I see this thing I didn't like, so I turn it into a fuzzy bunny, and I play with it. And I've seen my friends and all." Yeah, great. You're not accomplishing anything, right? I heard this girl that used to work in the same kitchen I was talk about this all the time. Finally, I went to master and said, "So you can control the dream, right?" I said, "So what do you do? I mean, are you looking for the mystery school, right?" And she looked at me like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, they say that you can learn the secrets of the universe there, and that's where you should quest, because it only exists on the astral plane." She goes, "Why would I do that?" Right? She looked at me like repulsed by the idea of it. And so it clicked in my head. I was like, okay, this person just wants to play with fuzzy bunnies. The astral plane is not intimidated, right? And they're definitely not going to learn any secrets, right? And so, okay, I get it. That's why they claim to lucid dream all the time. They're just they're playing games. They're not really doing anything. They're not accomplishing anything. So, astral plane's not intimidated. Sure, why wouldn't it let them do it all the time? But if you're on a focused quest, then it's going to take note. And I've heard people say like, okay, don't say you're dreaming in there because you'll notify the dream police. That thought to me is just absurd, right? And right, totally ridiculous. And the people who say that others show up, and men in black, right? It's like, okay, this is a product of your subconscious. That's all it is. A product of your own imagination. And yeah, so you're still stuck in the dream. You're not controlling it. If somebody comes up and tells you what you're going to do, or you are definitely not controlling it. And so that's my idea of it anyway. So anyway, looks like 30 minutes already. Good God. So why don't you leave me a comment and tell me if you've had one of these, or if you feel like you want to try it, or whatever. Because when the big sleep comes, when you shrug the mortal coil, you'll exist on the astral plane only as, just your immortal soul, your immortal spirit. But you will obtain your full power. You will no longer be tethered to these molecules. And so you might want to start training now so you'll be ready for that moment. And for me, that moment is going to be ecstatic joy. Absolutely 100%, right? I have zero fear of death. As a matter of fact, I'm looking forward to it. I remember I used to say stupid shit like, I pray for it daily, right? And kind of, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to, make it happen, because if you commit suicide, you just lost all your personal power. So you cannot do that. That's, coward's way. It's chickening out, right? You failed the test. And from my research, there's only one secret to passing, and that's be happy, right? No matter how you die, just be happy. And you will be able to take your full power with you on the journey and not leave any forgotten emotion here, right? And that will open the door for the, they say it's a ghost, but it's an imposter. But that's the little secret of, they say that, like, enlightenment, right? That's a big magic trick. It's like some unattainable goal, when it's actually just remembering yourself and quieting the constant inner monologue, the dweller at the threshold, the ego, right? And people are like, oh, don't kill your ego, you need that, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about quieting it, right? Don't kill it. You just get it to shut the fuck up so you can enter the silence. And that in itself is a magic trick. And I can explain the way I did it. No, I've only been able to do it a few times, right? It is hard. And I guess we'll just whip that one out real quick rather than make a new video on it. If you've heard of a sensory deprivation chamber, right, where you go into this salt water and you float in it and you plug your ears and close your eyes and there's no light and they're not here, you don't have any distractions, and so you start to breathe, right? Do your breathing, calm yourself. People, one time I asked this dude, he says, yeah, I do it all the time. I said, how do you do it? What's your method? Focus inward. That's all you could keep saying. Focus inward. Focus inward. I'm like, okay, how do you focus inward? You focus inward. I was like, okay, obviously you're full of shit, right? And so, yeah, there's techniques to it. And mine was, I didn't have sensory deprivation chamber, so I just got in the warm bathtub, right? And I turned off the lights and shut everything down. Really put my ears under the water, had a cloth covering my eyes, right? And just calmed myself down, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, counting the sets slowly, and just stilling the inner mind, right? And your mind will start to think, and you just continue to breathe, right? And the breathing will eventually, it will quiet. And so anytime a thought starts to arise, just divorce it. And then there's always, you can always tell if somebody's ever accomplished it, because I always ask them, oh, you have entered the silence. What was the first thing you heard? And they're full of shit. There's one guy, he said, I didn't hear nothing. It's the silence, you dumbass. He said, and I just fucking chuckled, right? It's like, good God, yeah, right. That's what an idiot would say. That's what somebody who was faking it would say. Because the first thing I heard was my heartbeat. And it was so fucking loud that I wondered why I'd never heard it before. It was a ba-boom, ba-boom, right? Couldn't hear anything but. I actually started to hear my blood circulating too, right? And so that's when you've quieted the inner voice, right? That's the silence. It's not silent, for fuck's sakes. You're just silencing that fucking constant nagging voice. And so you can actually be free of it. as Eckhart Tolle says, right? It's like being possessed by a different entity, right? Your mind, and quieting the mind, right? And then this is how you can access the power of now, the eternal now, right? Because most people are future tripping or living in the past, and you can't do anything in either spot. The only time you can do anything is now. And so if you think about doing something in the future, you'll never do it. The only time you can do it is now, right? And that's the whole thing about it, accessing the power now. Don't think about someday when you're going to do this. Now do it this minute. And that's the power of it. So, okay, good talk. Tell me what you think. Hit me up in the comments. I'm going to try to get more back into this. I will be talking about more and more stuff along this vein, but I felt this one kind of burning at me because I've looked at a few videos recently, and people talk about lucid dreaming, and I just chuckle, right? Because they're confusing just becoming aware you're dreaming with controlling it, and so. But if any of you have any nightmares or anything like that, next time you're running from whatever it is, look at your hands, right? The moment you look at your hands, you'll go, fuck, I'm dreaming, and the nightmare will be over, and it will stop. It will stop happening from then on, because you can now defeat it, and so it won't be able to put you in that fear state and feed off that anymore. So, all right, big love. I'll catch you next time. Try to get back on this live stream schedule too. So I know shit's just been hectic. Anyway, big love. Give somebody a hug. Get prepared. Do your training, right? Always training mentally. Now I'm going to go, I've decided to go back into this binaural beats and whatnot, and start to get back into the mental training as well as back into the physical training as well. And so embarking on the journey after, the grief has finally left me, which is another story. Cheers.